Big breaking news today in Formula One. The Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix won't be going ahead as planned this weekend. Absolutely the right decision to make, given the images that we're seeing out of that region in Italy. Some horrible flooding, and that's really been going on for a few weeks now. Laurence, we have kind of been monitoring the situation for about 24 hours. Yesterday, it didn't seem like this was going to be the outcome, but the images that we saw overnight and this morning, they're absolutely awful. I mean, some of the flooding in Imola, Faenza, which obviously is where AlphaTauri is based, looks really, really bad. What are your thoughts this morning seeing that news?
Yeah, as you say, I think it's the right decision. I don't think F1 could have done anything else. It's clear that the local authorities there and the emergency services need to be focused on making sure people are safe, and having a Formula One race in the area would take so much away from that. It seems like some of the roads are blocked anyway, so getting people in and out, asking people to travel that far, all of that would only add to the pressure that is clearly building there, and just making sure that everyone is safe. So it's absolutely the right decision. I think we've got so used to F1 just plowing through and making races happen that there was almost an expectation that it would go ahead. I mean, we saw through
Yeah.
COVID how F1 was able to adapt and keep races happening. I remember the 2019 Japanese Grand Prix. I was on the ground there, and the typhoon hit on the Saturday, and no one went into the track on Saturday. But by Sunday morning, qualifying had started and it was going ahead. But this one is clearly different. You know, the lasting impact of this extreme weather is serious, and we
Yeah.
saw images of flooding very close to the track. It seems like the F1 paddock just about escaped the worst of it, but the F2 paddock was flooded. Areas around it were flooded. Hotels nearby were flooded. And it's just so important that the safety of people there comes first. And the motor race absolutely rightly comes second. And in this case, had to be called off.
Yeah, and we've both been to Imola, haven't we? And logistically, that is, it's such a rural and remote part of Italy. I mean, for people who haven't been there, it's about 30 minutes kind of southeast of Bologna, which is a fairly big city. But there's really only one road in and out. And if your emergency services, dealing with, as you say, a massively important kind of disaster that's going on there, the last thing you need is thousands of people descending on that town. So I have to admit, when I thought about, that side of it today, the prospect of them cancelling seemed a lot more likely. Um, it does seem, from what we've heard, doesn't it, that Formula One, this isn't an official cancellation. I mean, it seems like it is a cancellation. Formula One has said, behind the scenes, and we've spoken to people at Formula One who say that the intention is that if they can, at some point, they'll try and have Imola down the road. I mean, I guess that's not important right now, because what's important right now is that region and kind of getting through the situation. But it seems fairly unlikely, I would say, doesn't it, that they could find another place for this race. I was looking at the calendar currently. Maybe the week after Monza, you turn that into a triple header with Zandvoort, but then obviously it has a knock-on effect to the races that are kind of coming after that. Do you? I can't see anywhere they could put that. Do you think that there's a place? And obviously, before they can even host the race, the situation has to improve in that area as well. Can you see any possible way they race this year there?
It is really hard to see where it's going to come in. And as you say, the wording in the press release was very careful. There was no mention of postponement. There was no mention of cancellation. It's just that it's not happening this week. And rightly so, F1 also put the emphasis on the importance of the kind of recovery operations going on there, and the safety of everyone. But there's no way it's, look at NASCAR races, they often get postponed and then they happen the following Monday and stuff like that. F1 is it's so difficult to move this circus around race to race, and there's no way it can just happen like a little bit later next week, because everything is going to Monaco. A lot of the teams actually double up on motorhomes so that they have one for one race one weekend, and then they go to another for the next race the next weekend. But it's not the same for everyone, and there will be a lot of freight that will have to go mainly by road, assuming the roads are open, from Imola to Monaco over the coming week. So it can't just be postponed by a few days. And then you start to look at where else on the calendar. Well, I mean, yeah, you mentioned after Monza, obviously, logistically it's close, but the problem is Singapore comes 2 weeks after that. So if you drop a race in between, then you have a situation where you've basically got 5 races in a row straight out of the summer break. The only space really on the calendar that could make any sense is the summer break itself. But F1 has this enforced 2-week shutdown in August, where the teams are not allowed to work. And so it would actually require regulatory changes to open up space in that part of the calendar to happen. And of course, the teams would lose that 2-week break, which is there for a very good reason, in that, people that work in Formula One are humans too and need to go on holidays and all the rest of it. So as sad as it is, I can't really see a space that it fits in. It's particularly unfortunate for Formula One because they already had the Chinese Grand Prix cancelled, and that left a huge gap earlier in the year. And now, of course, we've got another race cancelled. So the initial plan going into this season was that there'd be 24 races. Now it looks like there's going to be 22, having previously settled on 23. So yeah, it's a tough situation. I don't really see how they can get it back on the calendar.
Yeah, it's all really up in the air, and that's really the kind of the vibe I get from people. I've spoken to people at Formula One today. I mean, some crazy images from out there. I mean, there's a picture on Reddit from up above from Red Bull's hotel, just looking down. You can just see the roofs of cars just completely submerged in water. Our friend AlphaTauri was one of the employees there that slept at the factory overnight, didn't he? Because access to his apartment in Faenza, which is down the road from Imola. So it shows you just how widespread the flooding is. He couldn't get into his apartment, so he stayed at the team's factory. So really crazy to think about what's going on there. And it's also a really weird situation with Formula One because it seems like half the teams have already kind of, personnel have gone out there. A lot of people, myself included. I mean, I'm sat here next to bags and suitcases. I was about to go to the airport with a lot of the other media today and travel out there. So I think Formula One made that call at the right time. I think they've done the right thing. Like you said, I was actually expecting them to kind of linger on it, but they've not. And obviously now everyone's attention should go on to people in Emilia-Romagna. Really, really awful situation, and really, really sad as well. I mean, I think it was ahead of Baku, wasn't it? Nick de Vries kind of paid tribute to the region and to the team. So did Yuki Tsunoda, because this has been going on for a long time. A lot of people have been displaced. So that's obviously the key thing for the time being. We'll be across this story, obviously, as always, on ESPN.com/F1 and on Twitter at ESPN F1 for any developments, and of course on any news about where this race might take place. So please keep it here with us on ESPN, and we'll speak to you soon.